I came across a letter, a piece, it's CBS News, that drew my attention. So often it is said, and often by, and as you know, I'm Jewish, liberal Jews, that Franklin Roosevelt was a great friend of the Jewish community and so forth. That's simply not true. There was a letter written many, many, many years ago by a fellow in England to FDR. And the story goes something like this. Last month, 60 Minutes correspondent Bob Simon told the remarkable story of Sir Nicholas Winton. He was a stockbroker in London who saved 669 Czech children, most of them Jewish, from the Nazis during World War II. England took in almost all of those 669 children, but Winton, now 104 years old, told 60 Minutes he made a desperate plea for help to the United States back in 1939. In fact, he said he had written a letter to FDR describing the plight of the Czech children and asking that America grant refuge to a number of them. He said, but the Americans wouldn't take any, which was a pity. We could have gotten a lot more of them out. David Dangbard, an archivist at the National Archives and Records Administration, happened to be watching 60 Minutes, one of the few, when the story aired last month, and he was struck by Winton's story. The man has incredible amount of chutzpah, Dangbard says in an interview with 60 Minutes Overtime. I thought this is an incredibly caring man who put himself on the line to help people that he didn't even know. So after seeing the story, this fellow who works at the National Archives, Lankard, decided to look for evidence of Sir Nick's letter to FDR in the Department of State records. Quote, lo and behold, I came up with his original letter to President Roosevelt, Lankard says. The whereabouts of the document had been a mystery for almost 75 years. The letter was dated May 16, 1939. It addresses Roosevelt as Esteemed Sir. Here's what it says. You ready? Esteemed Sir, perhaps people in America do not realize how little is being and has been done for refugee children in Czechoslovakia. They have to depend entirely on private guarantors to get into England, which means that somebody has to take full responsibility for maintenance, upkeep, and education until they're 18 years of age. No other country is taking an interest in them except for Sweden, which took 35 children last February. We at this office have case papers and photos of over 5,000 children, quite apart from a further 10,000 who we estimate have to register. Actually, so far, we've brought only about 120 into England. In Bohemia and Slovakia today, there are thousands of children, some homeless and starving, most without nationality. But they certainly all have one thing in common. There's no future. If they are forced to remain where they are, their parents are forbidden work, and the children are forbidden schooling, and apart from the physical discomforts, which are all this signifies, the moral degradation is immeasurable. Yet since Munich, hardly anything has been done for children in Czechoslovakia. Many of the children are quite destitute, having had to move more than once since they originally fled from Germany. In other words, they were going to be exterminated. It is possible for anything to be done to help us with this problem in America. It is hard to state our case forcibly in a letter, but we trust to your imagination to realize how desperately urgent the situation is. Believe me, esteemed sir, with many thanks, your obedient servant, Nicholas Winton. Well, according to Lankard, after the White House received this letter, it referred the request to the Department of State for action. So you can see what's going on here now. Shortly thereafter, the Department of State forwarded the letter to the President's Advisory Committee on Political Refugees, suggesting the organization involved might be interested in Winton's cause. But they weren't. Dangbard also found another memo from the Department of State that instructed the U.S. Embassy in London to, quote, acknowledge receipt of Winton's letter and advise him that the United States government is unable, in the absence of some legislation, to permit immigration in excess of that provided for by existing immigration laws. We always have and had a political exception, being the threat of physical harm or death. So FDR said no. It wasn't the first time, and it wouldn't be the last time. I thought I'd point that out because just like history has been rewritten in this country about race and the Democrat Party and the enormous damage the Democrat Party has done to this country in supporting slavery and supporting segregation, long history of it. The damage it's doing now to this country in terms of our liberties as a people, our economy, the nature of our government. Franklin Roosevelt is voted by most historians in these liberal colleges and universities as the greatest president, or second or the third, and he's not. So I just feel an obligation to tell you the truth, and there's a lot more I could tell you about him, but I'll save that for another day.